Dear students, listeners and learners, Namaste all of you. Now, today and here, these are the three words, but these words are very important for our nation and society. How we can keep our mind, our present sense of mind, with 100% present sense of mind, what can we achieve? It is really remarkable and outstanding for our scholars. Earlier, there was a time in English literature we have studied when William Wordsworth used to say that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of our powerful feelings, recollected in tranquility of our heart and mind. It means William Wordsworth was strongly in favor of passions, emotions and feelings. Dear friends, it is rightly said in our all holy scriptures that man is known by mind, not by heart. Heart, according to medical science, is that internal organ of our human body which is universal and common in all the human beings, but man is known by mind. It is really notable and recordable thing from our all holy religions of our holy scriptures from the holy land. Dear friends, if we take a glimpse of the history, we find that there was remarkable change when there was a time when all the people of the world were impressed by their feelings. White feeling, black feeling, white mailing, black mailing. These words have become very common for our constitutional bodies, for our honorable judiciary. According to our all holy religions, man is known by mind. As per the thoughts of Swami Vivekananda, on the basis of our cultural issues, he addressed and advocated to the worldly people by these holy words of this holy land. My brothers and sisters of the America, my brothers and sisters of the USA, these words created upheaval in the minds of the ministers, doctors, advocates, advertisers, administrators, those who were present at that time, even researchers and scientists, those who were available at that time, how they became stunned by listening the voice of that Indian cultural voice presented by Swami Vivekananda in the USA in 1893. To the glimpses of the history, we read that in the same year of 1869, there was the birth of Swami Vivekananda. धन्यवाद, नमस्कार सर। Swami Vivekananda and Mahatma Gandhi, both they born in the same year. But when we take up the opinions of Swami Vivekananda, then our all youngsters, youth filled with energy, unbounded energy, uncounted and numberless ideas, thoughts automatically generated, regenerated, created and recreated, operated and reoperated in their minds. How does it happen, dear friends? Because of the excitement, self motivation, self encouragement, soul power, spiritual power. This is the base, fundamental of our all holy religions of this holy land. Dear friends, if we talk about the birth of human being, then we observe, examine, evaluate that our man is known by its power of observation, examination, self-observation, self-evaluation. These were created by Swami Vivekananda in front of the youngsters for creating nationalistic and patriotistic views. He addressed the worldly people by the Indian cultural issues, Vasudev Kutumbakam. Where there is Swami Vivekananda, there is Bharat. He addressed this thing to the worldly people. Dear friends, further he says that what does the mean of success? Success means not the platform. Success means continuity, regularity, unrelentingly, unceasingly, unstoppingly, when we try to go on our path to achieve the goal, to obtain ambition of our life. Further he says that one idea, one nation, one man can bring revolutionary, visionary change, not only in the society, neither in the nation, but also in the world. In the nature of the mind, a man can bring newnesses by going through the lessons, examples of our social reformer. Further he says that get up and do not take rest until you get your goal. What a remarkable saying from this social reformist who awakened the whole world, and our present Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji also inspired, motivated by the literature of Swami Vivekananda. Undoubtedly, when you will go through some important dates of this Indian history, you will find that there was the year of independence, 1947. First starter of Dera Sacha Soda Shyamastanaji Maharaj, who came here in 1948, and in 1950 it was the birth year of Narendra Modi, present Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, who born in 1950 after the independence. So dear friends, he observed, examined, evaluated all the ups and downs in the different fields of agriculture, industry, economy, communication, transportation, railways, banking, post offices. Not only in these sectors of economy, but also in politics, society, personally, professionally, publicly, emotionally, spiritually even. He addressed his experiences time to time. So dear friends, today you are listening the time of T.S. Eliot. Why do we remember him? Because he says that poetry is the turning loose of our emotions. Poetry is not the turning loose of our emotions, but escaping from emotions. Listen again, please. Poetry is not the turning loose of our emotions, but escaping from emotions. Dear friends, these same words was addressed by our President President Modi ji in the Parliament of Britishers when he went to the land of London. He addressed these words by recollecting and reminiscing T.S. Eliot, about whom we are discussing today. T.S. Eliot, who born in 1888 and died in 1965. As we have studied Victorian age from 1850 to 1900 period. Later on, in 1885, it was the time of establishment of the government in India, and in 1893, Swami Vivekananda went to the USA. So this was the period of 19th century period, full of industrial revolution. Revolution in industrialization brought a great change in the 20th century period by flourishing First World War and Second World War. Full name of T.S. Eliot is Thomas Stearns Eliot, a poet, sorry, a poet of the present century, belongs to both the American and the British traditions. Born in America, he came over to England in 1915. In 1927, he became a naturalized British subject. Eliot's criticism was about working out of his poetic theories and styles, and his growth as a poet is clearly reflected in his critical work. He wrote several plays as well and experimented with poetic drama. After a brief period as a schoolmaster, he was employed in the colonial and foreign department of Lloyd's Bank. He was director of Faber and Faber, the famous publishing firm. He was Charles Eliot Norton Professor of Poetry, Howard University in 1932 to 33. He was awarded Nobel Prize for Literature in 1948. His publications include collected poems 1909 to 35, published in 1936, Old Poems, Book of Practical Cats 1939, Four Quarters 1944, Plays, Murder in the Cathedral 1935, The Family Reunion 1939, The Cocktail Party 1949, The Confidential Clerk 1954. He has also written a number of critical essays. His fame as a critic is no less great. During This time we study first World War from 1914 to 18 and 1938 to 1945. It was the time of Second World War. So these two world wars was experienced by T.S.Eliot. What is his important writing? That is The Wasteland, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Four quarters were poems which set new trends, writing in the tradition of the metaphysical poets. He adapted cinematic techniques and the stream of consciousness mode to poetic use. He created rhythms and image which were modern and reflected the tensions of contemporary life. His poetry, like his prose, is marked by dissatisfaction with the cultural and social situation. There is a strong conservative element in this dissatisfaction. As director of the publishing firm of Faber and Faber, he exerted a great deal of influence. Eliot was a byword for poets of the 50s generation in India, several of whom have been deeply influenced by him. Two impressions, two impressions stand out from Eliot's volume. One is the impression of dear friends, as you have studied, he discussed about the theory of impersonality. Two impressions stand out from Eliot's volume. One is the impression of a remarkable technique. The other is that the poet is usually dealing with involved or obscure or painful status of mind. The flexible technique springs largely, as Eliot has told us, from his early study of Jacobean stage verse and free verse of Jules Laforgue. It is a sign of Eliot's originality and insight that he should have turned to choose those two models in verse and studies them together. Eliot insists on a poet's obligation to transcend his private self by loyalty to the tradition of European literature as a whole, for which he needs the historical sense. For Eliot, it means a constant attention to changes in literary styles and values, but also to continuity and permanence, a sense of fixity together with flux. In Eliot's poetry, the idea of time has the same kind of prominence as the idea of nature in the poetry of the Romantics. It is latent there from the beginning. It comes to the forefront in Duration 1919, the most important poem in his second volume, and thereafter Meditation on time remains an essential aspect of his poetry from the wasteland to four quarters, where it supplies both a subject and a method. One sign of Eliot's mastery in his having perfected a new form of verse resembling Langland's measure and challenging without being distracting to a modern ear. It might be called a poised measure, distinct alike from verse liber and irregular blank verse. It consists of lines of varying length, commonly with four strong beats, pausing midways as if for deliberation. It upholds that most precarious of poetic flights, calm, abstract statement. This has the brilliantness of prose, but the effect of poetry, even of dramatic monologue. The verse movement underscores the act of the mind in distinguishing between neighboring concepts. Eliot has found the exact rhythm and tone of voice for this purpose. Eliot defined poetry in these words: poetry is not turning loose of emotions, but an escape from emotions. It is not the expression of personality, but an escape from personal ability. His central purpose can be described as a search for a detachment or impersonality. We owe an enormous debt to Eliot for extending the range of English poetry. His ideal of impersonality is ambiguous, but at its clearest. It stands for an intense effort to pass through a baffling, oppressive sense of unreality, to free himself of it by converting it into mode of detached contemplation. Eliot's indifference to narrative in his own work is another aspect of his search for impersonality. Dear friends, here you will remember Swami Vivekananda's views and John Keats also. John Keats, who has written, "Art is long, life is short. Unheard music is more sweeter than heard." Further, he says, "Beauty lies in the eyes of beholder." From his conclusion of the poems, we can say, duty is beauty, beauty is duty. Similarly, Swami Vivekananda addressed unread, unspoken, unwritten, unheard is more important than heard, listened, spoken, and written. Return to the Vedas. He addressed to the worldly people. He emphasized to the returning. If you want to get the pleasure in your life, then return to your past, return to your childhood. So we should not forget our Indian cultural values. Dear friends, as our human body is made by air, fire, soil, sky, and water, it is said in all our holy religions, and every young man of India who is a believer and follower, devotee of any religion, he knows this thing, that his God or Lord does exist even in airless, fireless, soilless, skyless, and landless places. So this is a great topic of research for the research scholars, those who are busy in doing research, and our Indian scholars, those who are doing research in Edinburgh, Harvard, Pennsylvania, Oxford, Cambridge, all over the world. Our scholars are doing research, but they must remember their basics. Fundamentals are more important than their doing research, because it is true in all the cultures and societies. Everyone is to respect his motherland. So it was efforted well by our President President Modi ji to recollect and to make them recollect from where they have come, for what they have come, what they are doing. They must remember, we must remember all the personalities, professionals in the different fields, those who are working internationally. Basically, they have gone through the motherland of India through brain drain. It is a great thing of proud for India and every scholar should do it. It is also the dream of our President Prime Minister Modi ji. We want, we want the leaders for exploring, exporting newnesses. If our India will provide ideal teachers, qualitative initiators, beginners and starters in the different fields, in economy, in innovation, in information technology to the world, then automatically India will become the leader of the world. So it is the dream, it should be tamed by every youngster in their mind to do something better, finer, nicer. Dear friends, as we have discussed earlier, the poem entitled The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock was first published in Poetry Chicago in June 1915. The poem was the title poem of the first collection of Eliot's poems entitled Prufrock and Other Observations 1917, published by the Egoist Limited. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock is the most typical and the best known specimen of Eliot's early poetry, which explores the consciousness of a representative denizen, craved a cabinet and confined in the inferno of the modern city civilization. The name Prufrock was adapted from a local furniture dealer in St. Louis, Missouri. It is reminiscent of certain qualities such a prudence, primeness, preciseness. The poem is an internal monologue. The two persons, I and you, are but two different aspects of Prufrock's own personality. We have to imagine a character speaking the lines and a context in which he speaks them. The context is not absolutely clear, though its broad outlines are obvious enough. The man is going to a sophisticated party, apparently a ladies' occasion of a cultural kind, but one which shares the vacuity of Boston society. Prufrock, however, has a special mission, for he is in love with one of the ladies and he is going to declare it. But he is an irresolute person. For him, even the simplest decision is a matter of strain, speculation, and stress or distress. The poem follows a sort of action. Prufrock goes towards the room where the women are imagining the experience before him. He reaches it in imagination and comes away without having done what he set out to do. He is clearly a failure. The poem has an epigraph derived from Dante's Inferno. The epigraph throws a good deal of light on the structure of the poem and on the nature of Prufrock. It shows that Prufrock is conscious of his evil intention, but does not want to share it with others to avoid inferno or infamy. In this poem, the rhymes are mostly functions. All of the scholars, those who are presenting their presence at this time, at this moment. Dear friends, as we have studied the discovery of India written by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Testament with the Truth written by Mahatma Gandhi, many uncounted epics, holy books, scriptures were written by our forefathers, foretellers, forecasters, free thinkers, freedom fighters, those who came first on this Indian land. So we proud on them, and we must try to go through these such kind of scriptures and literature to enhance the capabilities, talents, manners, skills of our youngsters. At this present time, in Rajasthan, in Bundi, our present Prime Minister has held a professional fair for providing the spiritual and skills, values of our nation to the worldly people. So such kind of programs should be arranged time to time in the different places of our nation for enhancing the talents, skills, manners, styles of our youngsters. Dear friends, further you are listening. If I thought that what I told you would ever be borne by you back to the upper world, I in my flame would be silent, but since no one has ever returned from the depth of this pit, I shall speak to you without fear of ill fame. The use of this passage implies that the love song itself is not sung in the real world. Dear friends, when we speak the word I itself is letter in English, but when we use it time and again with accuracy, naturality, correctness, preciseness, conciseness, then we feel that this word creates energy in our mind, and our eye just starts searching something new to speak with the help of the informations or with the help of the recorder of the human body, that is mind. When the evening spreads out in the sky like a patient under anesthesia on a table, you and I go out together. Let us walk through some half deserted streets which provide places of rest for poor people. The lodgers in the one night cheap hotels pass restless night and visit restaurant full of sawdust and austere shells. These streets follow a winding course like a tedious argument of concealed desire and ultimately lead you to an important question. Oh, do not ask me about the matter. Let us go and make a visit. The women come and go on the room talking of Michelangelo without really understanding his art. Prufrock describes the scene in the evening. There is no movement of the air. The fog is spreading all over the streets. The yellow fog rubs itself on the window panes. It contains a lot of smoke which too covers the window panes. It spreads all over. It licks its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingering upon the pools found in the drain. The fog allows the soot that falls from the chimneys of factories to settle upon its surface. The fog missed the terrace and suddenly jumped up in the soft October night, curled over the house and stared there. Further, there will be enough time for the yellow smoke that moves along the streets and rubs its back upon the window panes. There will certainly be enough time to get ready to prepare oneself to meet friends. There will be enough time even for a murder and act of creation, as also time for all the daily routine of work. There will also be time to prepare a question and put it on your plate. There will be time for you as well as time for me, and yet enough time for 100 indecisions and 100 visions and revisions. Before taking a cup of tea and a toast in the room, women come and go out talking of Michelangelo. There will be enough time to wonder and ask myself if I have the courage to express my desire. There will be time to turn back and go downstairs, which will disclose the bald spot in the middle of my head. People who see this will say, how his hair is growing thin. I may dress well and appear at my best in my morning coat, my smart and stiff collar, my fine necktie held in position by a beautiful pin. People will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. The question is whether I should at all declare my love and therefore disturb the universe. In a little time, there can be decisions and revisions which will in a minute be reversed. I have known I have known all the decisions and revisions and have also known what happens in the evenings, mornings and afternoon. I have followed the course of modern life by taking a lot of coffee. I have known people singing in the restaurants and their voices becoming faint on account of a highly vocal music coming from another room. The question is, how can I therefore speak out my mind? I have known the eyes of ladies or of critics, the eyes that sees you up in definite phrase, and after that I am labeled. I sprawl on a pin and am afterwards pinned and left wriggling on the wall. The question is, how should I begin my proposal and declare the sum and the substance of all my feelings? The important question is, how should I declare my love? I have known the arms of women. Their arms are braceleted, white, and uncovered. But when seen against the lamplight, the arms are covered with brown hair. Is it the fragrance of perfume coming from her dress which makes me give up my intention to speak out my love? I should be bold enough to speak out my mind. If I do so, let me think how should begin my proposal. Shall I begin? Shall I begin the proposal in this manner? I may say that I have in the evenings through narrow streets and observed the smoke coming out from the pipes of the lonely unmarried men in their shirt sleeves looking out of the window. I would not speak out. I would rather be a kind of sea species with rough claws moving quickly across the floors of silent seas. Though I have wept, fasted, and prayed, I imagined that my head has been cut and brought in a platter. I am no prophet, though have suffered a lot of persecution, but that is a different matter. Have observed my agitation at the moment of my achievement. I have seen the god of death laugh at my cowardice, but what could I do? I was diffident and nervous and could not speak out. Even if it were possible for me to speak out, would it have been worthwhile? Would it have been proper after the drinks and snacks served in the fine chinaware to have said a few words and so to say squeezed the universe into a ball and to roll it towards a very important question and to say, I am Lazarus, come from the word of the dead to tell you all that I have been in hell. Perhaps, perhaps the lady putting a pillow under her head and quite informally would tell me that she did not mean anything. Would it have been worth if, after all the social gathering in the evening and the dooryards and the different streets, the reading of novels, the taking of tea, and the dances with the girls wearing skirts touching the floor, and so much more, even so, it is not possible for me to say what I feel. If a magic lantern could give a picture of my inner feelings on a screen for the lady to see, would it have been worthwhile doing all this? Perhaps the lady would rest herself on a pillow or throw off a shawl and turning towards me would say that she did not mean anything, that is, she had no love for me. Prufrock feels he is indecisive, though he is not like Prince Hamlet. He says, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was I mean to play the role of Hamlet. I am an attendant lord, a small person who will participate in a procession or takes initiative to staging a scene or two or advise the prince. I am an easy tool, respectful, glad of using maxims and proverbs, though sometimes dull, at times ridiculous, and almost a fool. Though I grow old, I shall dress well, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled, I may part my hair behind. It was bohemian at the time. I can dare to eat a beach like a young man. I shall wear white flannel trousers and roam on the sea beach. All this preparation is being made by him for an excursion to the sea in order to beguile the tedium of his civilized social life. This was not to hide his old age, in order to be acceptable to his lady love. I have heard that mermaids sing to one another. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen the mermaids riding on the waves. As they move further into the sea, they disturb the white foam on the top of waves, and when the wind blows, the water turns white and black. The mermaids seem to sing, we have waited long in the chamber of the sea. We have been garlanded with red and brown seaweed by seagull until we are disturbed by human voices, and then we dive deep into the sea. Dear friends, as you have heard, very important literary ideas, thoughts that helps our all spiritual learners who has who has not heard the name of William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare, who born in 1564 and died in 1616. Shakespeare is England's greatest poet and dramatist. Dear friends, who is the father of dramas in English literature? That is William Shakespeare. Who is the father of essays? That is Francis Bacon. So you must remember, as a young man, here we are discussing William Shakespeare. As a young man, he moved from his native Stratford-on-Avon to London. There, he soon established himself as a playwright and poet, as well as an actor and shareholder in the Globe Theatre. He wrote over 30 plays. He also wrote narrative poems and over 150 sonnets, some of which are among the greatest sonnets in English. In all his work, he exhibits an unequaled power of expression and profound insight into human nature. It is his exclusive quality of expressions that is rarely found in English literature. Throughout his tragedies and comedies, we find it. He selects a person who belongs to the higher and aristocratic or royal class of the society. When Shakespeare returned from London to Stratford, his hometown, he was rich and successful, and he owned one of the biggest houses in the town. He died in 1616. Shakespeare's sonnets describe two love affairs, but we do not know who the lovers were. Although there are many public documents concerned with his career as a writer and a businessman, Shakespeare has hidden his personal life from us. A 19th century poet, Matthew Arnold, addressed Shakespeare in a poem and wrote, "We ask and ask, thou smilest and art still. There is not even a trustworthy portrait of the world's greatest dramatist. The sonnet, Shall I Compare Thee, is addressed to a young man, Shakespeare's patron, the Earl of Southampton, though the identity is not certain." While going through the summary of this poem, you will understand the truth of life. Both the poets, William Shakespeare and Edmund Spenser, these are the two great poets of the Elizabethan age. Equal to them in the same Elizabethan age, Shakespeare's contemporary is Francis Bacon. But Francis Bacon basically is known as the father of essays. The beauty of the poet's friend has been immortalized by the poet in this poem. In the opening lines, the poet asks a question, whether he should compare the beauty of his friend to that of summer. Then he gives up this idea because summer is short-lived. The beauty of his friend is permanent. Here, the poet refers to a spiritual and intellectual beauty, not the beauty of flesh and blood. He is more beautiful than the beauty of summer. Hot winds blow in summer and shake the flowers that bloom in May. His friend is mild and lovely in temper. Unlike summer, his beauty is everlasting and not short-lived. The good qualities of his friend's nature will neither fade nor decline like the beautiful objects of nature. Time and death will have no effect on him. The poet says that his friend is pictured in his verse. He has become a part of his poem. So long as men live on earth, The beauty of his friend will be read by them through the poem. Thus the beauty of poet's friend will become the part of eternal things. What an important philosophical ideas we collect by going through the poems of Shakespeare. Actually, all the philosophies that we read from the mouthpieces of the different scholars in English literature, they have come from the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. But we must go through the English literature because it is rightly said that literature is the mirror of our society. For knowing the international connectivity and relativity, for knowing the culture and climate of the different nations, we must go through the writings of the novelists, poets, dramatists internationally. As we have studied about Shakespeare, in April 1593, Shakespeare published his poem Venus and Adonis, which was dedicated to the young Earl of Southampton. It was a great and lasting success. In 1594, his second poem, The Rape of Lucrece, was published. By 1596, Shakespeare had written about 9 plays. Soon afterwards, he wrote the first of his great plays, Romeo and Juliet. In 1598 Christmas, the players re-erected a new house on the south bank of the Thames. This playhouse was named the Globe. The expenses of the new building were shared by more important members of the company, including Shakespeare. Shakespeare was by now a prosperous person in 1596. He had bought New Place, a large house in the center of Stratford. By 1598, Shakespeare was recognized as the greatest of English dramatists. Since 1601, Shakespeare had been writing less. There were now a number of rival dramatists who were introducing new style of drama. Chief among them was Ben Jonson. Jonson's Every Man in His Humour was acted by Shakespeare's company. Shakespeare seems to have retired from the stage by 1608. His name does not occur in the various list of players after 1607. Henceforward, he lived for the most part at Stratford, where he was regarded as one of the most important citizens. He still wrote a few plays, chiefly tragicomedies. The Tempest was one of the plays written during the period for the last 4 years of his life. He lived in retirement. His son Hamnet died in 1596. Shakespeare died at Stratford upon Avon on April 23, 1616. Dear friends, next we are listening the summary of Nor Not Marble Nor the Gilded Monuments. This is also the remarkable and outstanding poem of Shakespeare that he wrote in the memory of his fast friend. Like Shakespeare's poem, Shall I Compare Thee? This poem too is dedicated to his friend W.H. This poem is remarkable for its prophetic note. A.L. Rauch says, all that one can say about this famous sonnet, this splendid incantation, is to notice the extraordinary outburst of confidence in his verse on the part of the poet, hitherto so modest. Perhaps it came naturally enough along with the relief of his anxiety. Nor was he wrong, wars have come and gone, London been twice burnt down, yet Shakespeare's friend goes on immortally in his verse. As the poet assured him, we may conclude not from this alone that poets are the only true prophets. The poet points out that nothing is immortal in this world. Everything is mortal, perishable, as it is said in all our holy scriptures. So we can collect the Shakespearean philosophical ideas from here that are collected from the Holy Bible. The marble statues, the huge buildings and grand palaces, and even the splendid monuments erected in the memory of great kings and princes are not permanent. They will all be ruined one day, either by wars or in course of time. Nothing can escape from the cruel hands of time except the creations of poets. Time and space has no effect on the works of poets. The poet is confident about this immortality of his verse. He says that as long as civilization exists in the world, people will read these poems. So the poet's friend will also be remembered by the pupil of all generations because he is portrayed in his verse. The memory of his friend will be transferred from an age to another till the day of judgment. Dear scholars, time and again when you will read, when you will go through and listenings of such critical poems of Shakespeare, you will get the immortal ideas. Let me note to the merits of true minds. This is also the milestone and landmark written by William Shakespeare. Shakespeare in England's greatest poet and dramatist. As a young man, he moved from his native Stratford-on-Avon to London. There he soon established from his native. There he soon established himself as a playwright and poet as well as an actor and shareholder in the Globe Theatre. He wrote over 30 plays. He also wrote narrative poems and over 150 sonnets, some of which are among the greatest sonnets in English. In all his work, he exhibits an unequaled power of expression and profound insight into human nature. When Shakespeare returned from London to Stratford, his hometown, he was rich and successful, and he owned one of the biggest houses in the town. He died in 1616. Shakespeare's sonnets describe two love affairs, but we do not know who the lovers were. Although there are many public documents concerned with his career as a writer and a businessman, Shakespeare has hidden his personal life from us. A 19th century poet, Matthew Arnold, addressed Shakespeare in a poem and wrote, "We ask and ask, thou smilest and art still. There is not even a trustworthy portrait of the world's greatest dramatist." The sonnet "Let Me Note to the Marriage of True Minds" is addressed to a young man, Shakespeare's patron, the Earl of Southampton, though the identity is not certain. In this poem, the poet speaks about the nature of true love. What is the true love? True love is that which cannot be altered by anyone or changed by itself. Like the pole star which guides the ships in the uncharted ocean, love guides the life of man to its right destination. True love cannot be destroyed by time, age, or death. This, the poet asserts, is the truth. The poet calls love as the marriage of true minds. True love does not change for the worse. It remains always true. It can cross all hurdles in its way. True lovers must unite despite hurdles and obstacles. Circumstances have no control over true love. A true love does not give up his true love even if his beloved shows signs of neutrality and indifference. Even if the beloved starts growing cold, the lover does not behave coolly. His love remains true and fresh as ever. The poet William Shakespeare defines true love with the help of grand similes and metaphors. A lighthouse stands in the ocean to guide ships. There are tempests and tidal waves, but the tower does not break. It stands in its place firmly. It weathers all storms like a hero. Similarly, true lovers face all storms with smiles and win in the game of love. They remain united and never waver. This is a suggestive simile. True love does not leave his grandeur when challenged. It remains firm. The poet, the poet compares true love with the pole star, which remains fixed in its place amidst storms and changes. It is this star which guides the ships on their proper routes. True love likewise shows the lover the path of noble action. It is possible to measure the height of pole star, but it is impossible to measure its worth and quality. Similarly, similarly, it may be it may be possible to measure and fathom the depth of true love, but it is impossible to measure its human warmth and quality. It is not possible to measure the spiritual content of the lovers. Time destroys everything. One who is born must die. No one is free from the scythe of time. It reaps all sooner or later. Time has spoiled beautiful women. They have lost their pink cheeks and blooms. Beauty is a 9-day wonder. The mightiest of beauties must die one day. Time, however, has no power on the true love. Time cannot kill it. True love is immortal and eternal. True lovers live beyond time. The poet reiterates reiterates his views in the last two lines. He cannot think of betraying his friend and beloved if he is not true to his love and friend. There is no person in the world true and sincere in love and friendship. The poet is totally correct about his views on true and sincere love. So, dear friends, very good evening to all of you. Nice to think, listen, speak, read, write. It is nice meeting all of my friends. I thank for your presence, for spending, giving, providing your most valuable time of your life for listening the words of English literature, language and grammar. Dear friends, once again I thank our President Prime Minister Modi ji, respected ministers and doctors, honorable advocates, advertisers, administrators and advisors, reverend fathers and affectionate sons and daughters. You are listening from Dr. Rakesh, USA. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you very much.